What's up, Falcons Nation, NFL fans? It's your boy Jew coming at you guys with another edition of What's the Word, Dirty Bird. We do this every Tuesday at 11 a.m. We go for about an hour, so about 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. But we're going to definitely got a lot to talk about today. We're going to do a little bit of a recap of Sunday Night Football, and then we're going to go ahead and jump into the Falcons versus Saints, as we call it Hate Week. We do got the New Orleans Saints coming in, and we got to protect home turf. Right now, we're 0-2 in the bins, so we're going to try to get our first win this coming Sunday. This will be a regular 1 p.m. kickoff game on Sunday afternoon. So definitely looking forward to this game. But with that being said, before I jump in and get going, I'm going to go ahead and just say what's up to a couple of you guys who's already in the chat. And I appreciate you guys joining me. As you guys come in, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share out this content. So first in the chat this morning, Robert Ponder, he said, "What's up, Jew? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining as always." We got Tony Hall, says, "Jew 2K, what's happening, sir? What's going on? Good morning." We got Lee 85. He says, "What up, bro? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining as always." Jonte Rozier says, "Good morning, Jew. What's happening, man?" Maurice Martin, "Good morning, Jew. What's going on, Maurice? I appreciate you joining as always." And Sonia Howell, "What's going on? I appreciate you with the red and black in the chat as always." So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into things and talk a little bit of a recap from Sunday Night Football. I'm not going to talk too long because at this point we have to push forward to the next week, and we have to focus in on New Orleans Saints coming in. But just want to give a couple of my quick thoughts. If you guys didn't get a chance to watch yesterday, I was on Smitty Sports Machines live stream last night in the talking football. We were breaking down the game and some different things. But personally, I'm not too discouraged from this Sunday night matchup that we had with the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, we did lose the game at home on Sunday night, but it was a really close game. The Falcons had opportunities to make plays, but at the end of the day, we didn't execute down the stretch. Yes, I feel like the refs played a part in the game, but I'm glad that the players and the coaches, Raheem Morris, they made no excuses about, the Kyle Pitts pass interference. They didn't talk about the Ray McLeod, getting that face mask when he was going down the sideline when he possibly could have scored. And no flag was thrown when his face mask pretty much was twisted all the way behind him. But with that being said, I'm glad that these guys took ownership and they're not making excuses. They stated that we had our opportunities to make plays when they were there. And for whatever reason, as I always talk about in the game, there's going to be 1 to 2 to 3 plays in the game that's going to change the game. And that could be the key plays in the game that cause you to win or lose the game. And we've seen that 4th down call by Zach Robinson with them trying to give the ball to Bijan Robinson on the sweep, and he didn't pick it up. That pretty much ended the game, and that was the final straw that broke the camel's back, as they say. So with that being said, we know that the Kansas City Chiefs are the 2-time defending champs. We went toe-to-toe with the champs, which shows that this Falcons team has all of the playmakers, and they have all of the ability in the world to compete with any team in the NFL any given Sunday, Monday, Thursday. Whenever we play a game and line it up, this Falcons team is good enough to go toe-to-toe with the best in the league. So to me, that's encouraging for us leaving that game heading to the first quarter of this season, is that we're sitting at 1-2, could easily be 2-2 when it's all said and done after this coming Sunday. So with that being said, I want to jump in back in the chat really quick and just say what's up to a couple of you guys who joined me recently. Miss Pam in the building. She says, "Hello, Joe," and everyone in the chat. Good morning, Miss Pam, Auntie Pam. 3 Dirty says, "Jew, what's up? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining as always." And Lee 85, I'm with you. He says, "I'm loving what I see despite our miscues." Yeah, I agree. At the end of the day, we had opportunities to win games. To be honest, these first 3 games, the Steelers game we lost, the first game, we had our opportunities to win that game. We won the second game against the Eagles. And then we lost this last game against the Chiefs. But all of these games have come down to the wire. All of these games have been one possession games. We haven't gotten blown out at any of these games. And we've been hanging around with all of these teams. And for the most part, we've been doing everything we need to do as far as to be able to compete. I've seen competent coaching. I've seen these players. It looks like these guys are in position to make plays. At the end of the day, it comes down to executing. When plays are there to be made, we have to go out there and make those plays. But with that being said, and what's going on, Bobby Boy Zone 3? What's good, man? I appreciate you joining me this morning as well. We're going to go ahead and jump into the Atlanta Falcons versus New Orleans Saints preview. So, as you guys know, this is our first NFC South division game of the season, and it's at home. So this is a must-win game. Every game we play is a must-win. You want to go 1-0 every single week. But I really feel like these next stretch of games are 3 NFC South opponents. We have the New Orleans Saints at home this week. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home next week. And then the week after, we're in Carolina to face the Panthers. So this stretch of games is very important for this Atlanta Falcons team. If we want to win the division, 3-0 should be the goal for this team heading into these next 3 weeks. But this week, we're going to focus in on these New Orleans Saints. As we know, they're the hated rivals in our division, and they're coming to the Benz on Sunday. And I really feel like this is going to be a very intriguing matchup, being that the New Orleans Saints started off the season hot, where they scored over 40 points in the first 2 games. Now, they did beat the Carolina Panthers, which doesn't say a whole lot, and they did dominate the Dallas Cowboys. But after seeing the Dallas Cowboys play Sunday against the Ravens and were getting blown out, it kind of goes to show that I'm not too sure of what team we're going to actually see on Sunday out of the New Orleans Saints. Now, I'm not saying that the New Orleans Saints are a bad team. I really feel like right now the jury is still out on them. And being that we've played, I'll say, a tougher schedule so far, I'm not too sure how good this New Orleans Saints team is. Now, one thing that I will say when it comes to this matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints, we know that anytime we play the Saints or any division rival, but especially the Saints, I always throw the record out the window because this is our hated rivals. I've seen the Falcons have terrible records, but when we play the Saints, we get up for that particular game, and we've beaten them in times and in seasons where nobody expected us to win. So I really feel like this is going to be a dogfight type of game. And I want to get into some of the matchups and things of that nature. As you guys know, the Falcons are heading into this game on the offensive side of the ball, a little battered and bruised after that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. We did have 2 offensive linemen that went down on Sunday Night Football, with Drew Dahlman, our center, going down with a high ankle sprain, and then with our right tackle, Caleb McGarry, going down with an MCL sprain in his knee. So I really feel like in this game, the first thing and the main thing that I'm focused on as far as one of the keys to victory for our offense versus the Saints defense is going to be our ability to run the ball. I really feel like in this game, we're going to have to protect Kirk Cousins. And because this line, we have backup guys that are out there, Storm Norton and Ryan Newsel will be filling in at that center position. It's going to be important that we get the running game going early so we can establish the line of scrimmage. We don't want to allow the New Orleans Saints in that front 7 to pin their ears back and, get after Kirk Cousins and, put Kirk Cousins under pressure and under siege in this game. So I really feel like it's going to be very important this week that you establish Bijan Robinson, you establish Tyler Algier, and you establish the play action. But if you're able to establish that running game early in the game and slow down that pass rush of the New Orleans Saints, I really feel like we can have a lot of success in this game, because that's when you can see the shots down the field. That's when those linebackers are going to creep up to try to stop the run if we're having success, and you'll be able to throw the ball in the middle of the field behind those linebackers. Now, the Saints do have some players like Chase Young, former Washington Commander, former #1 pick out of Ohio State. He's one of those guys that's playing really well right now for the New Orleans Saints. We know that they still have Cam Jordan on that defensive line, who's a little bit long in the tooth at this point, but they've been allowing him to move inside and play the 3 tech a little bit so they can move guys on the outside like a Chase Young. And they have a really good front seven. We know that Demario Davis, the middle linebacker, is one of the best in the league, number 56 for the Saints. He's the heartbeat of that team, and he's one of those downhill type linebackers where he likes to set the tone in the run game as far as making tackles and things of that nature, him coming on blitzes. So it's going to be very important, like I stated in this game, that we establish the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball. Now, good news is I believe that our O-line coach, Dwayne Ledford, is one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. He always talks about speed off the ball. And I really feel like those guys, Ryan Newsel and Storm Norton, the backup reserve players, are going to play a lot better in this game, because last week those guys were just brought in the middle of the game. They didn't practice with our first unit, the first team, and things of that nature. So when we came up with our game plan and the scheme and things of that nature last week, Ryan Newsel and those guys, Storm Norton, they didn't get probably any first team's reps and things of that nature. So I really expect those guys to play a lot better than they did last week, because they have all week to prepare. Going into this game, Zach Robinson has ways where he can mass protect and things of that nature for Kirk Cousins to be able to get the ball out. We seen last week, as soon as Ryan Newsel got in the game, we seen a bad snap where Bijan Robinson ended up, catching the ball that Kirk Cousins was bobbling. We also seen after Caleb McGarry went down with that injury and we were playing with those 2 reserve offensive linemen, the Kansas City Chiefs started to pin their ears back. So they started to send blitzes and things of that nature to try to confuse our offensive line and try to put, Kirk Cousins under pressure. Now, good news is it seems like as the game wore on, our offensive line and those guys did kind of get their footing, and they played a lot better in the late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter. So I really expect in this game us to have some success. Now, the second key for our offense in this game is really going to be getting the ball to Kyle Pitts, getting the ball to Drake London. We have to start feeding these guys. And this is something that we talked a little bit about last night on Smitty's show. I really feel like if we're going to keep Kyle Pitts here on this Atlanta Falcons team, he has to have a bigger role on this team. I feel like he's not getting enough targets, to be honest. I really feel like they're going to have to do a better job of scheming him open. I understand that we're a run-first team, and we're trying to feed Bijan Robinson. We're trying to feed Tyler Algier, and we have a lot of weapons with Darnell Mooney and Drake London. But I feel like he has to start taking advantage of Kyle Pitts and Drake London and their size. Just throw the ball and give those guys opportunities to make plays on the ball. We've seen Drake London kind of start to emerge over the last couple games where he's been getting off. But I really feel like we're going to have to start using Kyle Pitts, especially when he's in line as a tight end. It's no linebackers in the league for the most part that's athletic enough to stay with Kyle Pitts. The same with safeties. It's not too many safeties that has the frame and that's big enough to keep up with the athleticism of the unicorn. So I really feel like in this game, I would try to expose the linebackers of the Saints and expose their safeties with using Kyle Pitts and Drake London in the middle of the field. Now, I am, excited for what I have seen over the last couple games out of Drake London. Like I said, he's starting to prove, as I mentioned, that he was going to prove that he's a superstar this year. He's starting to emerge, and he's having a really big season so far. Guys have been stepping up in the passing game. Ray McLeod has looked really, really good this year. He's been making plays, and he stepped up because I really didn't know how well he would play when Moore went down with that injury in training camp. I didn't know how well Ray McLeod was going to be able to play this year, but Ray McLeod has been a breath of fresh air. He's been, to me, one of the guys that I didn't expect to have as big a role as he's had, but he's playing really well. He's been one of those guys that's been moving the chains on third down, being really good at running those jet sweeps and things of that nature. We've seen him almost break a touchdown on Sunday Night Football where they gave him the reverse down the sideline. And throughout his career, he's been mainly a special teamer when he was with the 49ers and with the Steelers, but he's showing that he's a bona fide, legit playmaker and wide receiver in the NFL. So I definitely think that this Falcons team has a lot to offer as far as on the offensive side of the ball. And I really feel like we can take advantage of the New Orleans Saints if we establish the line of scrimmage and if we're able to protect Kirk Cousins. I really feel like that's going to be the biggest thing in this game is, can we protect Kirk Cousins, give him enough time to throw the ball down the field? And are we going to be able to establish the line of scrimmage with these two reserve guys that we have on the line of scrimmage on the offensive line? But with that being said, you guys also let me know in the chat who you think will have a big game this week against the New Orleans Saints on the offensive side of the ball. I see Bobby Boy Zone 3 says Dallas Goedert had 170 yards receiving. Yeah, I seen that. He had a big game against the Saints last week and pretty much had the game-winning play when he made the play late in the game, caught the pass coming across the field and ran down the sideline for like 60-plus yards to go ahead and score that go-ahead touchdown. And he said Saquon Barkley had 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bijan finna eat. Yeah, he played well as well. Saquon is one of the better running backs in the league. But I definitely think that like Philly and like the Atlanta Falcons, Philly has a really good offensive line. We've seen that on Monday Night Football when we played up against the Eagles. The Eagles are really good on their offensive line as far as running the ball, protecting Jalen Hurts. And they proved that on Sunday. And Dre Murphy says, I hope and pray, I wish they keep my boy, my dog, my man, Kyle freaking Pitts, the unicorn, give him a contract extension and make him Atlanta Falcon, Dirty Bird. Got many, many more years to come. Yeah, Kyle Pitts is extremely talented. He's extremely talented. I have his jersey, so I do hope he stays with our team and it doesn't become a throwback jersey anytime soon. So I hope that Kyle Pitts does stay on our team, but I really feel like we're going to have to start feeding him a little bit more. I know we always talk about we want to see players get opportunities to make plays, but I feel like this year when Kyle Pitts has been thrown the ball, he's made plays when he gets his opportunities. He just hasn't had a whole lot of opportunities. Now, does it matter whether he has 10 targets in a game? I really don't feel like it necessarily matters if you win the game, but when you're losing games, then that's when it becomes an issue. And I really feel like if you look at last game against the Chiefs, when we threw the ball in the end zone and it was a clear pass interference, that goes to show you that teams can't cover him man-to-man, one-on-one. So you have to give him more opportunities because it's going to cause teams to either he's going to come down with a catch and make big plays, or we're going to get the yardage because teams are going to get PI calls because they can't deal with his physicality and his athleticism. So I really feel like we have to give Kyle Pitts, get him more involved in this offense. And Joseph Thornton says, what's good, Jew? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me this morning. And as I mentioned, as you guys come in, hit that like button for your boy. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel and you enjoy the content. Jonathan Razier says, Drake on offense. Yeah, Drake has been the man. He's been balling. I also have a Drake London jersey, and Drake is one of my favorite offensive players on this team, but I definitely agree. Drake has been having his way so far this season. Miss Christie in the building says, good morning, Jew and Falcons family. Good morning. I hope all is going well with you. And Bobby Boy says, Darnell Mooney's looking better than Van Jefferson, that kid we signed from the Raiders. Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, Mooney is special. Mooney is a very good route runner, and he's a big-time playmaker with the ball in his hands. And what makes Mooney really good is he creates separation. A lot of people talk about Drake London not creating a lot of separation, and Kyle Pitts, they don't create a lot of separation. Well, I'll tell you somebody that will. Between Ray McCloud and between Darnell Mooney, those guys are really good route runners, and both of those guys are speedsters. So they'll create space. If you're looking to, throw the ball to someone that's going to separate, Mooney and Ray McCloud has showed that this season, that they have that speed and the route running ability, that they're going to create a lot of separation. And Pam says, I have to admit, Kyle did an excellent job blocking in Philly game, and Bijan did a good job of picking up blocks to keep Kirk. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they did a good job. Both of those guys, Drake as well, all of those guys did a good job in Philly of blocking down the field. I really feel like in this last game, it was kind of like because those backup guys end up getting in the game, they played well for the most part, but they kind of struggled a little bit early on in the game. Like I said, they found their footing after a couple of, after they played a quarter and a half, but it took a while for Ryan Newsler at that center position to get his footing. It took a while for Storm Norton, for those guys to get acclimated to the speed of the game and stuff like that. And Tay Bro says Mooney and Ray Ray been stepping up big. Yeah, most definitely. Those guys have been the unsung heroes of the team. I didn't think that. I thought that Ray Ray McLeod was really good as far as a special teams player, but I didn't think that he had the route running ability that he's shown. And he's more than just like a trick play type of player. He's actually a legitimate NFL wide receiver, a third string wide receiver. Like he's making plays out there. He's been the guy that we've been moving the chains with, especially on third downs. He's been one of those guys that's been making big time plays. He understands when the defense is playing zone, how to sit down in the zone and make himself available for Kirk Cousins. He's been doing it in the run game with the jets, jet sweeps and stuff like that. And then Mooney had a really big game against Philly with him scoring a touchdown. And on that last drive, he made some big catches on the sideline. So both of those guys have done a great job of stepping up and having a big year so far. But with that being said, I want to go ahead and talk about our Atlanta Falcons defense versus this Saints offense. So as I mentioned, the New Orleans Saints offense came out really, really hot. They came out red hot this season, scoring over 40 points in their first two games. As I mentioned earlier, they played Carolina the first game of the season, which doesn't say a whole lot. And then they turned around and played the Cowboys, and they dropped 40 points, which was pretty impressive. And then last week, Philadelphia kind of locked that down, and I believe they didn't even score 20 points, if I'm not mistaken, in the game against Philly. So in this game, personally, I think that the Atlanta Falcons have a top 5 defense or a top 10 defense. So I don't see the Saints putting up 40 points. I really feel like they're going to struggle against us because in that Cowboys game, as you guys know, my wife is a Cowboys fan, so I did watch that game, Cowboys versus Saints. And what I noticed in that game was Alvin Kamara had a really big game running the ball. I believe he had like 4 touchdowns, and he pretty much ran all over the Cowboys defense. And then we turned around and watched last week the Baltimore Ravens run all over that Cowboys defense. So personally, I really feel like our Falcons defense is a lot better at stopping the run than the Dallas Cowboys. We have a lot better defense than the Dallas Cowboys because we have the playmakers. And I really feel like we're going to force Derek Carr to beat us in this game. I don't really think that we're going to allow Alvin Kamara to get that running game going and him to be the focal point of the offense, how he has been so far this season on the games where they've been balling out. I really feel like we're going to push Derek Carr and force Derek Carr to be the reason that the Saints win this game. And if Derek Carr can lead them to victory, if he can come in and throw for 300 yards, if I'm Raheem Morris, as I always say, I will walk to the middle of the field, shake the hand of the New Orleans Saints coach, and take my hats off. But what I'm not going to allow is Alvin Kamara to come in here and have 200 all-purpose yards or 150 all-purpose yards, both running and catching the ball. To me, he is the engine that makes that Saints offense go, and Alvin Kamara. So if I'm the Atlanta Falcons defense, he would be public enemy number 1. He would be the guy that's the first one I'm writing on the whiteboard that we have to stop in the film room. He's the guy that I'm focused on in this game. At the wide receivers positions, we have to focus on not allowing big plays. They have Shaheed, who's one of the better deep threats. And Philly did a great job last week where Shaheed had 0 catches for 0 yards. They didn't allow the deep bomb down the field that the Saints had been getting early in the season. And with us having Jesse Bates, with us having Justin Simmons, those guys are maestros on that back end. And I don't see us, blowing any deep coverages and things of that nature in this game. I really feel like Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons, it's hard to outsmart those guys because they're veterans. They've been in the league a really long time. If you notice, this Atlanta Falcons team hasn't really given up a lot of explosive plays. We're making teams slowly but surely march down the field. And I seen a stat where it says that the Falcons has only given up 4 touchdowns the whole season. So we only given up 4 touchdowns in 3 games, which is really, really good. So I really feel like this is going to be a game where the Falcons defense lock up. We're not going to allow Alvin Kamara to run the ball. And if we're able to put them in 3rd and long situations, if we can stop the run consistently, I really feel like in this game, we can put pressure on Derek Carr. In this game, I really feel like the X factor is going to be Matthew Judon coming off the edge. You guys know that I'm a huge Matthew Judon fan, a huge fan of the trenches and guys that play in the trenches. But I really feel like because Derek Carr isn't a mobile quarterback. He's kind of a sitting duck back there. He can move a little bit, but he's not the Lamar Jacksons. He's not the Jalen Hurts that we played, over the week. He's not a Pat Mahomes. He doesn't have that escapability. So I really feel like these guys are going to be able to pin their ears back. And I can see Matthew Judon at least having 1 sack in this game, maybe a strip sack fumble, because Derek Carr is the guy that likes to sit in the pocket and scan the field and throw the ball down the field. So I expect us in this game to take the ball away, but I feel like Matthew Judon is going to have a big game, and this defensive line I think is going to be able to control the trenches. Now, one thing that really shocked me about the New Orleans Saints is when I watched them in the preseason, they struggled with their offensive line of being able to protect. But so far this season, it hasn't reared its ugly head. So I don't know if their offensive line has improved as the season started, or if it has more to do with the competition that they played in matchups, being that they played Carolina, who's not the best on defense. They played the Cowboys, who consistently have shown us this year that they can't stop the run. So it's hard for me to make out how good the New Orleans Saints offensive line really is, but we're finna find out on Sunday how good they really are, because the Falcons have one of the better defensive lines, especially as far as rotating guys in. We're one of the deepest defensive lines in the NFL. So I really feel like we're going to find out real fast how good this Saints offensive line is. And they're really going to be tested. I think we're probably the best defense that they face, bar none, so far this season in their first 3 games. I really feel like the Falcons have the best defense out of all of the opponents that the Saints have faced so far this season. Now, another key to this game, as far as stopping the New Orleans Saints, as far as their passing game, is Chris Olave, the former Ohio State Buckeye. We know that Chris Olave has been a thorn in our side. Last year, he had a really big game. That last game before Arthur Smith was fired, the last game of the season last year, Chris Olave had a really big game. He's a very explosive wide receiver, can run all of the routes on the route tree. And he's one of those guys that's a big-time playmaker. But I really feel like in this game, because we have those safeties on the back end, I don't expect Chris Olave to have a huge game. Will he make plays? Yes, because I don't really feel like it's a way you can shut out a really good wide receiver, especially the way that the rules are in today's NFL. But we can't allow Chris Olave to have 2 touchdowns, 150 yards receiving. We can't allow that to happen in this game. So he's going to be that second guy that I'm focused in on. Outside of Alvin Kamara, they're trying to get the ball to Chris Olave. Those are their 2 bona fide playmakers. They do have guys, like I said, Shaheed, who's a guy that can hit his head on the goalpost because he's really fast when he gets in space. But as far as guys that are just bona fide playmakers, and I feel like they could dominate on any NFL team, Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave are the 2 guys that I'm really focused on in this game that we have to lock in on. And if I were the Falcons, I don't know if they will have AJ Terrell follow Chris Olave, but I definitely would keep an eye on Chris Olave in this game, because he's one of those guys that's really, really good as far as in his young NFL career. He's one of the better young wide receivers in the league. With that being said, you guys also tell me your thoughts on who you think will be one of those guys on the Atlanta Falcons defense that can make an impact and kind of lock things down. And give me your thoughts on the Saints offense and a player that we possibly need to watch out for. I really feel like the main 2 guys is Alvin Kamara. He's public enemy number 1. And then right behind him, 1B is Chris Olave. Those are the 2 guys that I have on the whiteboard that I'm focused on. Shaheed, like I said, is just a deep threat for the most part and on trick plays and stuff like that. But the main guys that I'm focused in on is lockdown Alvin Kamara. Don't allow him to get in the screen game and make plays and allow him to carry the football, and don't allow him to take over the game, and don't allow Chris Olave, to take over the game and make big plays down the field. And Falcons for Life says Olave don't go off when Terrell covering him. Yeah, last year he went off. It wasn't necessarily against AJ Terrell because I believe the big touchdown that he had last year was against Clark Phillips, where he basically plucked the ball off the top of his helmet. But I definitely agree. But the real question is AJ going Terrell going to follow him, or are they going to allow Chris Olave to line up in the slot and then line up against D Alford or line up against Hughes? So that's going to be the interesting thing, is to see if AJ Terrell is going to shadow him throughout the game. And what's up to my bro in the chat? 6MK, 6Man K Styles. Y'all go and show him some love on his channel. Make sure y'all hit that like and subscribe button on his channel as well. And Atlanta Falcons says, don't. Atlanta Falcons fanatic says, don't count out Taysom Hill, who's always a thorn in our side always. I think Taysom Hill is hurt, though, if I'm not mistaken. But you might have to look that up. But last time I checked, I think Taysom Hill is hurt. If Taysom Hill plays in this game, then he's also a weapon that they use as well. Just when him running the football, him lining up in the backfield, him lining up as a tight end, he's like a Swiss Army knife type player for them. But I think that he's hurt, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that he's going to play in this game. But if he plays, he's also a guy that always makes plays. So we always have to keep an eye out for Taysom Hill as well, as a gadget type guy. And Falcons for Life says he went off on Okuda and Phillips. Yeah, that's why I said last year Olave had a big game. Not necessarily against AJ Terrell, but at the end of the day, if AJ Terrell doesn't travel, then the other guys have to step up. Like Mike Hughes, to me, has been the biggest surprise to me on this Atlanta Falcons team at that number 2 cornerback position. He's played really, really well throughout the season. He had a really good game against the Chiefs where he was out there making plays. So I definitely feel like it's, this is definitely going to be a big game for the secondary to see, if we can lock down Chris Olave. And K Style says it right here: complementary football and disciplined football. And I completely agree. And that goes down to what I was stating in the beginning of the show about you have to be disciplined. You have to execute. When plays are out there to be made, you have to make the plays. We've seen in this last game, Jesse Bates drop an interception. Not saying that it was his fault that we lost the game, but it was multiple missed tackles on occasion where we allowed Rashid Rice to get going for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he made plays. Now, some of the plays that I seen on Sunday Night Football, that was just Andy Reid's brilliance and his ability to understand how to pick off players and stuff like that, and allow guys to get into open space. So I don't expect to see the same thing from the New Orleans Saints. As far as, I don't know if Clint Kubiak has a similar skill set to Andy Reid, because he's still a young offensive play caller in the game. And we know that Andy Reid is probably the best play caller. Personally, I think Andy Reid is the best offensive play caller in the league. So, and William Amy, what's going on? He said this is a must-win game. I completely agree. That's what I stated earlier in the show. This is a must-win game for our Atlanta Falcons. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, even though every week is a must-win game. Now, good news, so far, the 2 games that the Atlanta Falcons team lost were against AFC opponents. We're 1-0 against the Philadelphia Eagles and the NFC opponents. So let's make it 2-0 on Sunday, because we know when it comes down to making the playoffs and those tiebreakers come up, it's going to come down to the games when you matched up head to head, or what team has the more wins in division. So this is another huge matchup, because not only is this an NFC team or opponent, but this is the NFC South opponent. So if we want to win the division, this is one of this is the biggest game of the season right now, because it's the next game in the season. But I definitely think that we have to protect home field because we know the next game is going to be in New Orleans. And Jonte says, "Do you think we match up well against the Saints?" I definitely think we match up well. The reason I'm not too concerned is this Atlanta Falcons defense is really really good, and our offense is really really good. But the defense is what I'll be mainly focused on, because that's where we've struggled to be able to stop the run and be able to get turnovers and give our offense a chance to play on a short field. So I really feel like we match up really well with New Orleans because I don't believe that New Orleans offensive line is as good as everybody thinks it is. We're gonna find out how good that offensive line is because they're gonna have to match up against Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, um, Lorenzo Carter, and Judon, and those guys coming off the edge. So I really feel like this game we're really about to find out how good they really are because if you look at the opponents that we faced, the Kansas City Chiefs were actually at times they struggled to move the ball against us. Like I believe Kansas City only put up 22 points or something like that, or 21 points. They didn't put up a whole lot of points against us. And like I said, teams are not putting up a lot of points. We're forcing a lot of teams to kick field goals. So if we can do what we've done the first 3 games on the defensive side of the ball and then put up points when they're presented and make plays and execute when they're presented, I definitely think that that we will be good. But I think we have a deeper roster. Personally, I think we have a deeper roster than the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints have dealt with cap issues over the last couple of years. I'll say probably the last decade. The Saints have been struggling with cap issues, so they haven't been able to sign those big splash type signings on their offense or their defense. If you look at their team, majority of the guys that they have are guys that they drafted. They haven't been able to really pay anybody. Like they have Alvin Kamara, who they drafted, Chris Olave that they drafted. They really don't have anybody that they were able to really pay to bring in. So I think we match up really well, especially like I said on defense. I really feel like our defense has the upper hand against their offense. Now the Saints defense against our offense, I think that their defense is really good as well because they have a lot of veteran guys like the Honey Badger, like Lattimore on at that corner position. As I mentioned, Cam Jordan. They have Chase Young now coming off the edge. So I really feel like if it came down to the two, I really feel like the Saints defense is a lot better than their offense is, to be honest. I really feel like the strength of the Saints is on their defensive side of the ball. And Bobby Boy says special teams been doing good in field position. Avery Williams legit. Yeah, I agree. The special teams has been really good. I don't think that Young Wei Koo has missed any field goals. Knock on wood. He's been making all of his field goals. Avery Williams has done a good job of returning punts and returning kicks and things of that nature. Now, I thought that he fumbled the ball on Sunday Night Football, which would have been a crucial play in the game, but his arm was down at the time that he fumbled the ball. The ball popped out. So, yeah, Avery Williams, we sorely missed him last year because he is a guy that makes plays as far as he gets us in good field position, and he's really good at returning the ball and, for the most part, protecting the football. So with that being said, I want to get some of you guys questions. So fan Q&A really quick here. So you guys start dropping your questions in the chat. Any thoughts that you guys may have heading into this game? How confident are you guys heading into this game? Personally, I'm super confident. Like I said, this is probably one of the better Atlanta Falcons rosters we can say in the last decade. Outside of the 2016 team, this is probably the 2016, 2017 teams. This probably is the one of the more, I'll say one of the deepest rosters that we've had. And even out of the 2016 team, we have more bona fide names on this team. I mean, the Justin Simmons, the Jesse Bates, the Judons, the Grady Jarretts. We have some legitimate names, the Caden Ellis's. Like we have those guys that have done it, not just on the Falcons team, but have done it in other, with other teams and proved that they were top dogs, as far as on their previous teams. So I really feel like I believe we can beat any team, anytime, anywhere. You line it up. this Falcons team can stack up or go toe to toe with the best of them. And he says, don't weigh too much on the 90 points they put up. They played trash defenses, hence they were almost nil against the Eagles. Exactly. That's why, and that's what I've been stating. Like, I really don't know how good this Saints team is. I don't think that they're as good as they've been, advertised. But we're going to find out on Sunday. But I think the Eagles last week kind of exposed them. And because we played the Eagles at Philly and we beat the Eagles and we played pretty well against them. Personally, I think that the Eagles are a better football team than the New Orleans Saints. They proved that last Sunday, but personally, I believe that they're better team. Now we know style makes fights, so just because the Eagles beat the Saints don't mean that the Falcons are going to beat the Saints because we beat the Eagles. This is going to be a whole totally different matchup. So styles make fights. So we're gonna find out, how we stack up. But I definitely think that they're not as good as advertised. And Falcons for Life says, y'all thoughts on D Alford? You think it's Phillips' time? I think Phillips has been getting snaps. Like I seen him playing, I believe the last 3 games, but it looks like they've been putting him in like later in the second half, like the third and fourth quarter. They've been allowing him to get snaps as well as Richie Grant. But I don't think that D Alford is actually playing bad. I've seen a lot of people pointing at D Alford and stating that he hasn't been really playing well. And personally, I don't agree with that. I think that a lot of the plays that I've seen been made against him has been scheme type deals where Andy Reid has just drew up a great play where they're picking off, your corner and things of that nature and allowing their guys to get in space and make plays. I really feel like D Alford is a solid tackler. He plays really good, tight, sticky coverage. So I don't think that it's necessarily Phillips' time yet. And personally, I think that Clark Phillips is a better outside corner than he is a slot corner. But I mean, I wouldn't mind throwing him out there. Maybe they mix it up and they let Phillips get some snaps as well. And Bobby Boy says we need to defend the Benz. Yeah, we got to protect home field. We definitely got to protect home field. Let's see. And Tate Boy says, what do you think about D Alford's play so far? Yeah, D Alford, like I said, D Alford has been doing this thing. D Alford is better than a lot of people giving him credit for. Just because you see a guy, someone score a touchdown and he's the guy covering them, it's multiple factors in that. And that's what I kind of try to tell everybody last year with Richie Grant. Everybody just went off on Richie Grant. Richie Grant is not playing well. Richie Grant is giving up touchdowns. It's like, yes, he is giving up touchdowns here and there, but it depends on what the assignment was on that particular play. Sometimes you're in man coverage, sometimes you're in zone coverage, and sometimes you're trying to cover up for a mistake that your corner or safety may have made, and you're just the person caught, on screen where the guy's making a catch, and everybody blames that person for giving up the big play when we don't know what the play call necessarily was. And Jonte says, "Who is your X factor on defense in this game against the Saints?" Yeah, I said it earlier in the show. I don't know if you were in the show at that time, but Matthew Judon is going to be the X factor for this team. I really feel like in this game, because the Saints, I really feel like we're going to be able to stop the run. If we're able to stop the run the way that I believe we will, that means it's going to be third and long situations, and that doesn't bode well for Derek Carr and the Saints. If it's third and long, Judon is hunting your quarterback, and 9 times out of 10, he's going to get there and make a play. He's going to get home because he has pass rush moves. He's a veteran. The Falcons run games up front, which get him in position to make plays. But Matthew Judon is going to hunt your quarterback, and I really feel like the tackles for the Saints are iffy. They're not that good. So I really feel like they have been playing with leads and things of that nature, and they haven't really played against really good defenses so far this season. So I feel like them 40 points that they put up 2 weeks in a row kind of has blinded everybody to think that the Saints they like that. But we finna find out. Like I said, I don't want to say that they not like that. Personally, I don't think that they're as good as they've been advertised, but we're finna find out on Sunday if they like that. And shout out to my boy Smitty Sports Machine says key matchups versus the Saints. Yeah, and I talked a little bit about that. So the key matchups I have for this game, we have to shut down Alvin Kamara. So that probably will be Alvin Kamara versus Caden Ellis and versus Troy Anderson, our linebackers. We have to shut it down in the front seven. And then I talked about Chris Olave. We have to stop Chris Olave because he's the guy that they're trying to get the ball to. As far as on screens deep down the field, Chris Olave is a really good route runner. So he's the guy that I think him matching up against AJ Terrell is another matchup I'm watching. And then I talked about on the offensive side of the ball for the Falcons, I really feel like we got to get Drake London and Kyle Pitts involved. Allow those guys to use their big frame to be able to snatch the ball and make plays. And then I said establish the run. You got to establish the run in this game. Don't allow the Saints to pin their ears back. Because if you allow the Saints to get a lead and you don't run the ball and you got two backup offensive linemen in there and you're trying to pass block the whole game, that's when things can get off balance. So I want to see us come out and establish the trenches, the line of scrimmage, and then I feel like those big plays in the middle of the field because the Saints linebackers are downhill linebackers. Demario Davis is not good in coverage. Pete Warner is not good in coverage. I want to expose those guys in the passing game. So I want them to have to match up with Kyle Pitts, meaning I'm putting Kyle Pitts on the inside of the formation to force those linebackers of the Saints to have to cover him one-on-one. Even if he's bracketed, I still feel like Kyle Pitts and Drake London in the middle of the field can make plays. And Bobby Boy says, lets the dogs out. Let's Rook and Bruce Brandon Dorless get some reps in this game. Yeah, we talked about that last night a little bit. Yeah, I agree. I definitely want to see Rook Ororo and Brandon Dorless get some snaps. But I really feel like Rook is a guy that's underrated. I really feel like if Rook Ororo actually gets in, I don't think that he's going to be a guy that they're going to be able to take out of the rotation. Because I just feel like his versatility, as far as his size and speed and length, he's to me like a similar to a Grady Jarrett, and he's quick twitch at the line of scrimmage, but he has very long arms and he's bigger than Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett is only like 6 feet 6 feet tall, and Ruka Roro is like 6'3" or 6'4". So his long arms, he can extend his arms to make plays in the running game. When guys are trying to block him, guards and centers are trying to block him, he has that length where he can use his arms to get off of blocks. Where I feel like some of the guys that we have, like a Grady Jarrett has to use his speed off the ball, his quickness, his quick hands, and his short area quickness to get off of a lot of blocks because he doesn't have long arms. So I think that that's something that Ruka Roro can present some trouble for a lot of opposing offensive linemen with his strength and his size alone, and then his short area quickness. I really feel like he'll be a guy that could definitely do some things. And Tony Hall says, got to keep number 94, Cam Jordan, and 56, Demario Davis at bay in this game. They've been torn in our side, thorn in our side, excuse me, for years. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Cam Jordan, I don't expect him to have a big game, to be honest. He struggled. I think he struggled against us last year. But Demario Davis, both of those guys are capable. And both of those guys hate to play the Falcons. So they can't stand the Falcons. We can't stand them. So I agree. I definitely think in this game that it's going to be very, very important that we do a good job of stopping Cam Jordan, stopping Demario Davis. Those are two of their premier players, but especially Demario Davis. He, to me, is the fire starter, the heartbeat of that defense. He's a guy that wants to come down here and stop the run and be a thumper. So in this game, it's going to be important that we don't allow him to get in his element. And the way that I would try to keep him out of his element is run the ball at him. And then I also would try to make him cover somebody, whether it's a Bijan out of the backfield, whether it's a Kyle Pitts. I want him out in space where he has to cover, and he can't just thump and play, in the middle of the field coming downhill. And Jonte Rozier says it's going to be a low-scoring game. I could see that. I could see it being a low-scoring game. I'm not too sure, though. I really feel like this Falcons team, I'm waiting for this Falcons offense to finally break out and score like 30 points in a game. Because I feel like last week, I thought that the Falcons were going to be able to put up more points. but I really feel like those injuries on the offensive line derailed, um, the Falcons offense. I really feel like if we would have had um, our starting Drew Dahlman and Caleb McGarry in the whole game, personally, I think we would have put up more points. And personally, I think we would have won the game. I hate to say that whether we would have won or lost, but if you look at the first drive of the game, how we drove right down the field and Drake London had that first touchdown, Kirk Cousins had plenty of time to scan the field and get the ball out of his hands. Then right after that, in that next drive, Caleb McGarry goes down with injury. So it was just like we really didn't get, even a full half of having a healthy offensive line. And I really feel like that's what derailed that football game. And we even seen in the running game, we could even run the ball as effective as we were when we had our starting offensive lineman out there. So that's why I said in this game it's going to be important that we establish the trenches, because last game, to me, the Kansas City Chiefs defensive line imposed their will on our offensive line. If you go back to the Philadelphia Eagles game on Monday Night Football, our offensive line imposed their will on the Eagles defensive line. We controlled the line of scrimmage. We played on their side of the line of scrimmage. And we seen that we were averaging, I think Bijan averaged like 6 yards a carry and Tyler Algier averaged 5 yards a carry against the Eagles. Last week, it was nowhere close to that with those backup offensive linemen in there. So we seen immediately how us being able to impose our will in the trenches on the offensive side of the ball. And we seen that late in the game when Nick Bolton came clear through and tackled Bijan Robinson for a loss or no gain when we needed that 4th and inches. That just goes to show you, like, they were playing on our side of the line of scrimmage after we had those injuries up front. With that being said, I'm about to get ready to wrap things up. We got about 8 minutes. So you guys, give me your questions. If you have some questions, give me your questions. Give me your thoughts quickly. Now, I'll take a few more of your questions. Now, I appreciate each and every one of you guys, man, continuing to like, share, subscribe, donate to the channel. I really appreciate you guys, man. And William Amy says, Raheem Morris better make adjustments. I think Raheem Morris has done an excellent job. Both him and Zach Robinson. To me, they've done a good job so far of calling plays for the most part. I think one thing that I like about Raheem Morris is he holds everybody accountable. And that's something that you have to be able to do as a head coach. But one thing that I love about Raheem Morris is not only he holds everybody else accountable, but he holds himself accountable first. And I feel like that was the problem with Arthur Smith as our head coach. To me, he threw guys under the bus too much for me. He didn't step up and say, like, it starts with me. And if you listen to all of these press conferences that Raheem Morris have had after these games, before these games, he always takes accountability that I have to be better. We have to do this. I made that decision. He always takes the bullet, steps in front, and protects his players and protects his coaches. So I really feel like that's very important as a leader and as the head man of an organization, a football team, a basketball team. You have to step up and be that guy that's going to take the bullets or take the blame when things go bad and when things go good. So I really feel like that's something that Raheem Morris have done a really good job at so far this year. Every time he's in a press conference, he's always talking about what he has to do to get the team to play up to where they need to play up to standard. He never throws his coaches under the bus or throws his players under the bus. He always talks about execution. He always talks about no excuses, which I like to hear. He didn't bring up the refs. He didn't allow, the media, or he didn't allow the fans to change his perspective. His perspective on it was, we have to be better, which I love. And let's see here. And Tay Boy says, let's put MPJ Kirk looking old out there. So you must be talking about Michael Penix Jr. Nah, Michael Penix Jr. is not going to see the field this year. I don't think Michael Penix, God forbid, knock on some wood here, unless injuries, strike for some reason, which I'm praying that they don't. we're not going to see Michael Penix Jr. this year, and for good reason. If you look around the league, these rookie quarterbacks, some of them look okay, but for the most part, they're not looking too hot. Caleb Williams is struggling right now. A lot of these younger quarterbacks are struggling just because they're rookies. They need time to, understand the game, break down the game. And we seen last year, even with Desmond Ridder as a first year starter, the NFL, there's a learning curve. So I really feel like the best spot for Michael Penix Jr. is on the bench, watching Kirk Cousins, learning how to be a professional, learning how to prepare his body for the week, learning how to break down game plans, break down film, all of that. He needs to get all of that, soak all of that in. He's seeing even the mistakes that Kirk Cousins is making. He's being able to learn from his mistakes being on the sideline. So I don't think that we see Michael Penix Jr. at all this season. The only way Michael Penix Jr. plays is, God forbid, we run off like a 10-game winning streak, and then we're heading into the playoffs in the last game of the season. They don't want to get anybody hurt. So they say, okay, we're going to let Michael Penix play because we don't want to get anybody hurt prior to, the playoffs. But outside of that, I think that you're not going to see Michael Penix Jr. this year, and it's for good reason. And Bobby Bone says, Bobby Boy says Zach starting to get in his groove. He's going to be in his bag this Sunday. Yeah, he's been, like I said, Zach's been calling a pretty good game plans. Last week he called a good game. And one thing that I like about what I'm seeing from Zach Robinson is it's not the same stuff. He's mixing and matching. And as I mentioned last night during the live show, it's like he basically is experimenting to find out what works, because this is his first year with these guys. So he doesn't know what works until he tries it. But I like that we're seeing a lot of creative formations. Like I believe last week in the red zone, you saw 3 running backs in the backfield with their hand in the dirt. I thought that was pretty cool. That's something similar to what you see with Andy Reid, where he brings all of these different funky formations to kind of confuse the offense. And we've been seeing that with Zach Robinson. The first week it was strictly pistol. Then the next week you seen Kirk Cousins against the Eagles under center doing play action. And then this last week we seen him mixing it up, mixing different things in. So I like that he's mixing it up and trying to figure out what works best. But I definitely feel like he's starting to get in this bag, because he made some great play calls last week. Sometimes the play may not go for yardage, but if you go look at Kurt Warner, he actually has a YouTube channel. If you guys go check his channel out, Kurt Warner did a whole breakdown on our first game against the Steelers. And after I watched that film of Kurt Warner breaking it down, he showed that Kirk Cousins had a lot of open reads that he missed. So that just goes to show you, like, Zach Robinson's dialing up the right plays. It's just the chemistry of learning how to play, because those guys didn't play preseason. I really feel like in the first couple games, you're still trying to see these guys get their foot and get that chemistry out there on the field together. But we're starting to see it come together. You've seen Mooney make some big plays over the last couple of weeks. You've seen Drake London coming on. Now we just got to get Kyle Pitts involved in the mix, because I really feel like Kyle Pitts can unlock another part of this offense as far as big plays down the field, his ability to control the middle of the field, his ability to make linebackers, put them in tough positions, both linebackers and safeties. So I think that's the next evolution of the offense, is getting Kyle Pitts involved a little bit more in the passing game. And let's see here. All right, so let's see what time it is. All right, so we got about a minute until 12 noon. So if you guys have any more questions, drop the questions in the chat. I'll probably take like 2 more questions, and then we'll get ready to wrap the show up. But you guys make sure you join us tomorrow night. For the heavy hitters, we will be live as always on Wednesday nights around 9:05. We usually go live. And of course, we'll give you guys a deeper, in-depth breakdown of the Falcons and Saints, matchup this upcoming Sunday. But I just want to give you guys a preview of, what I expect from this game. Like I said, it's hate week. You guys know that anytime the Saints and the Falcons line it up, there's always, it's always competitive. It seemed like that game is always competitive, and especially how the last game went against the Saints in our last game last season, last regular season, with them scoring a touchdown in the nil formation. I think that this Falcons team is gonna have something to say about that. I think that we ain't forgot about how the last game ended in New Orleans with them trying to run the score up on us. And let's see. And Dre Murphy says, don't want to rush MPJ out there too fast like they did DR9, though. Dang, look how that turned out for Desmond Ritter. Not good. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like they wasn't patient enough with Desmond Ritter. It wasn't even that he played bad necessarily. He made a couple rookie mistakes, fumbling the ball, throwing interceptions in times when he shouldn't have. But what rookie quarterback hasn't? Like, unless you're just CJ Stroud, which CJ Stroud is like a 1% out of the quarterbacks that we see get drafted, in the first round, of him leading his team to the playoffs and him having a pretty good team. CJ Stroud is an aberration. He's not the norm. So I really feel like we just were not patient enough with Desmond Ritter. He was out there making rookie mistakes, and we were also putting him in bad positions. So I really feel like that was the main issue with Desmond Ritter. So we don't want to see that with Michael Penix. And that's why we won't see Michael Penix probably for 1 to 2 years. I'm just being honest. If Kirk Cousins leads this team to the playoffs and we make a deep playoff run, they're not going to move off of Kirk Cousins next year and go to Michael Penix. They're going to at least give Kirk Cousins probably at least 2 years so that money can kind of start rolling off the books. And then at that point, they'll say, okay, let's see what Michael Penix can do. But outside of that, I really feel like they're going to ride it out with Kirk Cousins until he gives us a reason not to. And to me personally, Kirk Cousins has played pretty well so far this season. He's done what I expected that he would do. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys joining me as always. As I mentioned, if you didn't like, share, subscribe, make sure you do all of those things for your boy. It helps the algorithm. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for your continued support. Like I said, I'm looking forward to this game on Sunday, matching up against our division rivals in the New Orleans Saints. And as I mentioned, tune in tomorrow night for the Heavy Hitters live. If you haven't hit that subscribe button on our channel, that's me, Mad Mike K Styles. Y'all definitely go over there and do that. And I also believe that my bro Mad Mike is going live, I believe, after this show. So you guys go over to his channel for his live show. I'm sure he'll have something interesting that he'll be talking about as well, being that it's hate week. With that being said, I'll holler at you guys in the next live stream. As always, you guys stay tuned because I have a lot more videos I'll be dropping today. I've been dropping a lot of different shorts and things of that nature. So you guys definitely stay locked into the channel. But as always, Falcons Nation, rise up, be blessed. Peace.